back to the eye symbolism. Where did this come from? Carlos Santana stated the following in 1999. In my meditations, the entity called Metatron said, "We want to hook you back to the radio airwave frequency to reach junior high schools, and universities. Once you reach them, we want you to present them with a new form of existence." What form of existence is that? In Santana's words, remember your divinity. So Santana is having spiritualist meditations, experiences. He communicates with a demon called Metatron. I don't know if this is Satan or another, it doesn't matter, but this demonic figure says to him, "We want you to go do an outreach program." The devil has an outreach program. It's called the music industry. You're going to reach junior high schools, high schoolers, university students. We want to get the young people especially. Remember what Aleister Crowley said, we're going to bring in an army of youth. So we want you to reach them and present them with a new form of existence. Remember your divinity. This is what he heard in his meditations with demons. In fact, he also heard, according to the 2000 Rolling Stone, March 16, that Metatron is represented by the, guess what? The eye inside the triangle. This is why this symbol has become so popular. The final push, post-20th century, the devil shows up to Santana, who was one of these musicians that was involved with a lot of different other musicians, and he had been communicating with the dead too, with Jimi Hendrix and Miles Davis, or demonic impersonations thereof, rather. And you'll notice immediately after this, 1999, 2000, this is when eye symbolism starts to take off in our modern time. What is the message behind the eye symbolism? Remember your divinity. Who is it that said that in heaven? Who is that? Who is it that said that to Adam and Eve? You can eat from the tree and you will not surely die, but you will be like God. I will ascend. I will be like the Most High. This has been the devil's message for over 6,000 years. It's nothing new. It's a new form of existence to many, but we know that it's a lie that dates back to the origins of evil. Well, it's not just Santana and the use of eye symbolism. There's other symbolism that you can find in the music industry. For example, Madonna's 2012 Super Bowl halftime show. Now, you'll notice on the slide I called it a Super Bowl service. Why would I call it that? Well, because on Anderson Cooper, Madonna described the importance that she attributed to her halftime show. This is Madonna. She said, "The Super Bowl is kind of like the Holy of Holies in America. I'll come at halfway of the church experience, and I'm going to have to deliver a sermon. It'll have to be very impactful." So what did she do when she came out on the Super Bowl in 2012? Here's how she was escorted out. You can see this is ushered in by scores of Roman soldiers and women. Madonna's glorious entrance into the halftime show is a reflection of where she stands in the music industry. Very prominent individual in the music industry. In fact, her ritual costume here, you'll see that it resembles the ancient Babylonian goddess Ishtar. Notice some similarities. You see the lion or the sphinx at the feet of Ishtar. You also see two lion or sphinx faces at the right and to the left of Madonna. It's not just that. You'll also see a distinctive headdress on Ishtar, two spires coming up, and similarly, we see the same thing with Madonna. In addition to that, you see three columns coming up and out from the shoulders of Ishtar. Again, Madonna, three columns up and out from the shoulders. We also see wings on the Ishtar image here, a winged goddess Ishtar. Do you see the wings off the stage of Madonna's platform? To a T. Everything that you can find here, we see also in Madonna's image. Notice also the sun. You see the sun at the top left of Ishtar, above Ishtar. Here's, again, this is kind of small, but if you can see way above her throne, there's an M with a solar disk. So no surprise that the more things we find in here, the more similarities that we find. And in fact, if you look at the tarot card of the Chariot, you also see something very similar. And this tarot card is used to evoke, spiritual power in the occult circles. Speaking of evoking power, invoking power, we have a winged solar disk that is displayed and illuminated upon the stage of Madonna at the end of the show. This winged solar disk has been used in occult circles for many centuries. Even in the Masonic Lodge, you will find at the top of this image the same sort of winged solar disk. The winged solar disk was used in Egyptian magic to invoke spirits. Now, Madonna, being the high priestess of the music industry, if you will, in many recent years, you see all these other stars joining her in the occult. She's sort of the, if you will, the high priestess goddess figure of these folks who are using all of this symbolism. And you've seen many of them, but I want to take a look at some of the lyrics of some of them, because it's not just in the symbolism. And we're not going to analyze all the lyrics of all these groups. Just a couple examples will do. I want to show you Katy Perry. Katy Perry's song Extraterrestrial. And this one is students always tip me off to this. They know what's going on. They know more of this than I do. And so I looked into the song Extraterrestrial after students said, you need to look at that. It's pretty demonic. She sings, "You're so hypnotizing. Could you be the devil? Could you be an angel?" Now we know out of the gates, we know that this is not a holy angel if he is hypnotizing. Could you be the devil? So this is a song about a demon or the devil. Your touch magnetizing. Now, if you look into the New Age practices and occult spiritualism, you'll find magnetism to be a very important aspect of those practices. Feels like going floating, leave my body glowing. Again, in the occult, in the New Age communities, there's a practice called astral projection, where you have an out-of-body experience that we already heard from Beyonce. Katy Perry, same thing. Feels like going floating, leave my body glowing. You're from a whole another world, a different dimension. You open my eyes. Who was it in Genesis 3 that said, your eyes will be open and you will know good and evil and you will be like God? This is the devil's message. You open my eyes, she says, and I'm ready to go. Lead me into what? The light. What does the name Lucifer mean? Light bearer. And what does it say in the Bible about him? It says that he can transform himself into an angel of light. Want to feel your powers? There is this transcendental on another level. Boy, you're my lucky what? Star. Lucifer means the morning star. In the Bible, an angel represents a star. Jesus says, I saw Satan fall from heaven. I want to walk on your wavelength and be there when you vibrate. For you, I risk it all. So we see very much spiritualism, not just in the symbolism, but actually the lyrics of the most modern musicians. When it comes to Eminem, I shouldn't really need to present a slide on Eminem. He was known as the artist of the decade in the 2000s, but his lyrics and the topics that he talks about, I'm going to spare you. We're looking at rape, murder, unbelievable things that I don't even want to mention in an expose of it. But he's the most influential musician of the first decade of the 20th century. And what I find interesting about Eminem is not just the horrific, immoral, violent, terrible lyrics and the terrible language used, but also you see the eye symbolism again, and notice this E, this backward E. There's something in Crowleyanism called the satanic law of reversal, where you are to talk backwards, walk backwards, think backwards, play phonograph records backwards, etc. These are ways that they practice Satanism. Is it any surprise then that the E is flipped backwards? Eminem said, Slim Shady, my alter ego, Slim Shady is just the evil thoughts that come into my head. And some of those thoughts, some of the songs sing of being demon-possessed and unbelievable, terrible things. If you know anybody that's listening to Eminem, it doesn't get much worse than this. It's really, really dangerous stuff. And we thought they were okay. We've covered a lot of different groups. We've seen a lot of different musicians who were inspired literally with their lyrics or their songs or the actual music from the demonic realm. We've looked at musicians who have channeled their music, who have talked about being possessed. We've looked at their lyrics being satanic, being do what thou wilt. But those are the bad ones. I can find some good ones. Remember the rat poison laden buffet? We stick around at the buffet. It's like, okay, he didn't put up my favorite musician, so I'm safe, and I'll continue to listen to the few musicians at least that didn't show up in the seminar. Is that wise? I would suggest no, for the following reason. I'm going to put a quote up on the screen from a musician. It says, we were doing witchcraft, trying to do witchcraft music. Now, if I asked you to guess who that musician was, you may say Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica, Marilyn Manson, some of these groups that I'm not even putting on the screen because they're so dark and death-oriented and evil. Marilyn Manson was intentionally and blatantly anti-Christian. It's got to be one of those kind of bad groups that the bad kids listen to, right? Where, the druggies and... Actually, I'm doing the spiritual sound, a white spiritual sound. Religious music, that's the whole movement. That's where I'm going. It's going to scare a lot of people, said Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. The music that the good kids listen to, right? Pretty harmonies. It's just nice melodies. It's just music about surfing. It's harmless, right? It's not all this satanic stuff. Think again. They were doing witchcraft music. Now, I never would have thought that. I never would have gone to that buffet and said, clearly, that one is filled with rat poison. I didn't know. Maybe I should ask the question, not which ones are filled with rat poison, but do I have confirmation and substantive evidence to conclude that they are not into spiritualism? That's what I need to find. Another one that I thought was okay, back in the 90s when I was a teenager, I was into Nirvana and Metallica and all these terrible bands. And the good kids listened to Tori Amos and others like her. But then I found this quotation. Tori Amos sang a song called Father Lucifer and stated, "I wanted to marry Lucifer. I don't consider Lucifer an evil force. I feel his presence with the music. I feel like he comes and sits on my piano." Wow. And we thought they were okay. Another one that I thought was okay and that the good kids listened to, Sarah McLachlan. In fact, the style of her music, In the Arms of an Angel, it's a pretty, beautiful song. We're going to talk about musical style in part 4. It's not objectionable at all. It's beautiful music. And I thought, oh, the angel. No, it's an angel. This is a religious song. But which angel? I think the devil has gotten a bad rap, she said. The devil is the fallen angel, the one who was willing to embrace the dark side. Whereas all the other angels were in total denial. The devil is more like us. In the arms of an angel. What angel is she singing about there? Sounds like she has an affinity for the devil. He's gotten a bad rap. He's the one willing to embrace the dark side. He's like us. Now what about some others that we thought were okay? You got your teeny bopper music, right? The young girls listening to your Taylor Swift, your Hannah Montana, the Justin Bieber. Hannah Montana I don't have to say much about because she's Miley Cyrus and went from being the cute Disney, just pop star, just fun stuff, to this overtly dark and highly sexualized singer. You look at that one for 10 seconds and you say, whoa, unless we've become completely desensitized, which maybe we have, look at it through new eyes, look at it through God's eyes and say, is that something that is appropriate? But the two on the left, especially the one on the top, Taylor Swift is very popular among Christian girls. Justin Bieber, again, very popular among young ladies. Well, I was asked to go look into them. I didn't know anything about Taylor Swift, but a student asked me, Mr. Ritzma, what about Taylor Swift? What about Justin Bieber? And so I looked up some of their lyrics, and I found a theme running through some of their lyrics. Both of them had lyrics similar to something like this. I'm going to talk on the phone to you late at night. I'm going to sneak out the window. You're going to come up the stairs of my house, and your mama don't know. And I'm going, this is what we're listening to at age 12 or even younger. Or how about any age? That's inappropriate for a 25-year-old to listen to. So I'm thinking, you know what? We thought they were okay, because they're not flashing occult symbolism and they're not dressed all in black like Ozzy Osbourne. But if you take a look at the lyrics, we find that if we're going to be guarding the avenues to our soul and avoiding thinking, hearing, seeing anything immoral, then we got to take serious thought about these musicians too. Now, these ones are especially interesting to me. The one on the top right here is Carrie Underwood. She's actually a Christian. She sings How Great Thou Art. And so I'm not going to make any comment on her faith, on her heart. I would never stand in judgment. But I do want to analyze the material she's putting out, as well as One Direction. Let's start with One Direction. I didn't know they existed. I presented this at a seminar, and a young person walked up and said, what about One Direction? Well, I looked at about 2 or 3 of this lyrics to their songs, and here's, I think, the third one I ever found, maybe the second. It goes like this. The party's ending, but it's now or never. Nobody's going home tonight. DJ got the floor to shake, the floor to shake. People going all the way. Yeah, all the way. I want to stay up all night. Hold on to the feeling and don't let it go. Because we got the floor now. Get out of control. I want to stay up all night and do it all with you. I don't think I need to explain the sexual innuendo there, but clearly this is not a holy scene. This is not a Bible study. This is not something that we would want to be encouraging in our imaginations. This is an all-night dance party, doing it all night, doing it all with you. Clearly, and by the way, I had a student that I said, okay, I'm going to get up to One Direction, and the student said, okay, fine. They have only 2 bad songs. and it's such and such and such and such. And it wasn't the one that I was putting on the screen. And they're like, oh, that one isn't really that bad. So apparently there's much worse. But again, I don't need to spend that much time. Let's just move on, and we'll see Carrie Underwood as well. I looked at online for 10 seconds. I pulled up the first YouTube clip, watched the YouTube clip for 10 seconds. It was a clubbing scene with these people all up on each other, and it was highly sexually inappropriate. And I'm not going to say she's not a Christian, but that was not Christian, clearly. And the theme of the song was, I'm going to smash your vehicle in and damage and destroy your truck because you cheated on me. The song was called Before He Cheats. Basically, I'm going to teach him a lesson. It's not what the Bible said, which is leave vengeance to God and forgive others and love your enemy. It's the opposite of that. I'm going to vandalize and destroy your property. And again, I'm not going to say she's not Christian, but that is not Christian. And I don't want to steer any Christian young people to listening to that sort of music either. Now, what about country music? I always thought that was okay because it's filled with patriotic values, even family values. But country music is kind of a funny animal. One song you listen to is highly moral and good and promoting of good values and American ideals. I'm all for it. And then the next song on the playlist, you hear about alcoholism or adultery or these terrible scenes of rural immorality in this case. And here's what Conway Twitty had to say about the country music scene. So don't take it from me, take it from a top insider. He said, as a country artist, I'm not proud of a lot of the things in my field. There is no doubt in my mind that we are contributing to the moral decline in America. There's no doubt in my mind that that area of the worldly music, of the secular music industry, has got a lot of rat poison too. Do I need to stick around and try and find the good stuff? Well, once you realize the open agenda of the music industry, you'll think twice. In session 2, we looked at the open agenda of Hollywood and of the advertising industry. But what about the music industry? Let's start again with Jay-Z. What does he have to say? He says, Jesus can't save you. Life starts when the church ends. He's not being very subtle. An open agenda, anti-Christian. Jesus can't save you. Life starts when the church ends, he says. He also calls himself Jehovah. This is not very subtle. You probably don't need the Urban Dictionary to define what Jehovah stands for, but here's what the Urban Dictionary explains it as. Jay-Z, a.k.a. Sean Carter, and the name Jehovah comes from Jehovah, another name for God. Jay-Z plus Hova equals Jehovah. And on the shirt there, he's got Masters of the Craft. Wonder what craft that is. Remember, he said, my brands are an extension of me. So the occult symbolism, again, all throughout the shirt. An open agenda saying, I am Jehovah. I am Jehovah. And Jesus can't save you. And the highest law is desire, by the way. We formed a new religion. Follow our religion. The MTV founder, Robert Pittman, put it this way. The open agenda of the industry. The strongest appeal you can make is emotionally. If you can get their emotions going, make them forget their logic, you've got them. More on that in session 4 on the effects of these the forms of music. But then he says this, at MTV, we don't shoot for the 14-year-olds, we own them. Think about that as a young person. We think that we're finding freedom by going into the media. I don't need all the rules and all of the legalism and all of the, you can't do this from the church and from my religious upbringing. I'm going to go find freedom in media and immerse myself in this culture of entertainment. But then you find out the Edward Bernays of the world, that the Mark J. Ryans have explained, you're actually getting captured, that you're getting enslaved, that this area is not a place of freedom, but quite the opposite. You're getting owned. That's not my word. That's Walt Mueller. That's rather Robert Pittman's words. At MTV, we don't shoot for the young people, we own them. The Beatles said, Christianity will go. It will shrink and vanish. I will be proved right. You just wait. We are more powerful now than Jesus ever was, says John Lennon. The open agenda of the industry. Listen to this one. You've heard the song maybe, My Sweet Lord. It sounds like a wonderful Christian song. George Harrison explained it this way. My idea in My Sweet Lord, because it sounded like a pop song, was to sneak up on them a bit. The point was to have the people not offended by Hallelujah, and by the time it gets to Hare Krishna, they're already hooked, and their foot's tapping, and they're already singing along, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, to kind of lull them into a sense of false security. And then suddenly it turns into Hare Krishna. And they will all be singing that before they know what's happened. And they will think, hey, I thought I wasn't supposed to like Hare Krishna. You see how they subtly get the Eastern religion slid into there, so all the Western American Christians who like the sound of hallelujah, they get accustomed to it, they're tapping along, and all of a sudden they're now honoring Hare Krishna. It's all happened subconsciously. More on that in session 4. How about Elvis? We haven't talked much about this individual. He was known as the king of rock and roll. Now, if you know your history, rock and roll was a sexual innuendo. I won't explain that, but to be called the king of rock and roll is to be called the king of something highly inappropriate in the context outside of a monogamous committed marriage. And here we have Elvis dancing as if he is engaged in that very act. And I hate to say that, but they used to not permit him to be filmed from the waist down on television because of how inappropriate his dancing was. And usually when I hear that story told by a historian or somebody of today, they'll say, oh, remember in the olden days when we were so prude and we wouldn't allow them to show Elvis's... Well, wait a minute. I'm not interested actually in society's standards. I'm interested in God's standards. Shouldn't we be saying, yeah, that's disgusting. I think that image is disgusting. He's not even moving. So we become so desensitized that we forget what God's standard is. I don't think the angels are dancing like that in heaven. So we have to ask ourselves, is that just because in the olden days we used to be so conservative about it? No, I think we need to recapture some of that, be resensitized, as we said in session 1. You know, Elvis, of course, got into drugs and all sorts of immorality, and he went back to his boyhood pastor. He said to his pastor, I've done everything you taught me not to do, and I'm the most miserable man in the world because of it. It's a serious thing. But I've been told that he was a gospel singer. You know, we as Christians should listen to that, encourage that aspect of the Elvis legacy. A gospel singer. Was Elvis a believer? Let's read. Elvis constructed a personalized religion out of what he'd read of Hinduism, Judaism, numerology,